welcome back to my channel. For those who are new here, my name is Aika and I make videos on mental health and psychology related topics. Today I'm going to be talking about things I like about studying psychology. So if you've already followed me for a while now, you know that I've been making videos about psychology careers and things like that, and recently I made a video on things I didn't really like about psychology, or I guess the honest truth about psychology degrees. So I guess the tone of it was a little bit more negative. So I just didn't want to leave it at that because it probably makes it look like I hate psychology even though I'm in psychology. I just wanted to, I guess, balance that with a video on the things that I really like about psychology for those people who are still studying psychology or thinking about studying psychology, just not to feel demotivated. The first kind of I guess positive of why studying psychology is kind of a good thing is because I feel like it is a broad enough degree that with the right experiences you can go into a lot of different things, more than any other subject can probably provide. So it's a really good mix of the both. It also means that you can kind of warp it and shape it into in a way that helps you do whatever you'd like to do. So I say this from experience as well, in that I've seen a lot of my friends, a lot of them have struggled to find a job, but the ones who have really focused on what they wanted to do, they actually ended up in loads of different things. So some of my friends are consultants in those, I don't know what they're called, but like top 4 consultancy firms with a psychology degree, and it's been very useful for them actually. Some people have also gotten into marketing, other people have gotten into HR/HR consultancy, and advertising might also be a good one that I've seen people go into. However, I don't really know much about that because I don't actually know anyone personally doing that. And also go into kind of behavioral sciences or kind of strategy work, so I guess helping corporations understand their demographics and how to nudge the right advertising things to the right places. Again, you can tell like I have no clue what I'm talking about, but you get what I'm going here, in that psychology is broad enough that you have the statistical knowledge, or I guess the scientific method ingrained in you. However, you still have that human side. That means that it can be a very broad subject that you can apply to anything. However, the caveat here is that I'm not going against my word from my original video on the brutal truth about psychology. I still do, obviously it's been like 2 weeks since I made that video, but like I still believe that like it can be a very dangerous place because it's so broad. However, if you are extremely motivated, it can be a strength rather than a weakness in terms of the breadth of psychology degrees. You can kind of funnel it into whatever you want it to be, basically. The second point is inherently psychology is just an interesting subject to take. There's a reason why so many people take it in America and in the UK. There's so many reasons why. It's because it's inherently interesting, and if you're curious about people, if you're curious about how people think, how people behave, historically how people behaved, mental illness, social and cultural effects on people, emotions, personality, all these kind of really interesting things that we have chats on the dinner table about, you get to learn in a lecture, and you get to dispel a lot of the misconceptions that you might used to have, or other people have, simply by studying psychology. So I think everyone, inherently being humans and being social animals, is interested in psychology and psychological science, which is pretty much what you would study in university, just helps you have that added knowledge to your curiosity. Like you are possibly in the best position to talk about cool things about how people make decisions and how people have lots of different biases, these kind of things that are just naturally quite interesting and just makes you a more interesting person, I think. Third point that I really like about psychology degrees, and is a strength of psychology degrees, is that if you want to work in mental health, it's probably the best degree that that you can do as a base degree. So a lot of things might require or prefer having a base psychology degree. So these things might be things like mental health social worker, educational psychologist, forensic psychologist, health psychologist, sports psychologist, even HR consultancy. You know, a lot of these things would see psychology degrees as a strength or even as a required thing. So if you don't have it, you have to go back into university and do a psychology conversion degree. Even though the content, as I said in my previous video, even though the content of psychology degrees aren't actually that applicable, it's just a good standard to kind of know that you Pavlovs, you know, your Milgrams, you know, your all the boring stuff that they keep, you know, repeating. But it's good to have that common language and knowing that you have that psychology based degree. So my fourth point is more related to what you can do with a psychology degree, more so than the actual psychology degree. So it's kind of following up on the previous point I just made. So if you do end up in mental health or anything around kind of academia related to psychology, and you know really enjoy psychology, I think you end up, even though you have that initial gap of uncertainty and unemployment and turmoil and confusion, if you are able to get past that point, I think you end up being more happy and certain about your career route than a lot of people. So whilst, you know, psychology graduates, when they graduate, they, you know, get paid minimum wage, whilst, you know, you can see your peers going into banking and going into being a lawyer and they get like, or going into marketing and they get that 25k grad scheme job, and you're like, fuck, like what am I doing? I should do that instead because I can do that. I think like the confusion comes earlier, but it doesn't mean that these group of people that you're comparing yourself to won't have that in later stages of their life. So I see a lot of people, because I assess a lot of people in the general public, and them having this like kind of career crisis in their, you know, mid-20s or late 30s or, you know, whatever. It's because they chose the security and the money, so they were driven by that and didn't kind of care about, you know, what they actually wanted to do with their life, whether they wanted to contribute to society, or that, you know, they didn't question whether they would feel detached from their jobs because it inherently doesn't hold much meaning to them. Whilst we kind of glamorize the niceness of having a grad job right after university, psychology students are basically hit with the big decisions early on, and then slowly they build up towards being certain about their job. So if you end up choosing continuously, each and every year you get rejected from your doctorate or training psychologist applications, each and every year you reaffirm your vows to psychology, it means that if you actually become a psychologist, you're way more, you know, sure and happy about your job. And inherently being a psychologist is just very meaningful work anyway. So yes, there is an initial struggle of, you know, low pay and uncertainty and, you know, etc. But once you get past that stage, I think like most psychologists, I don't know a lot of psychologists, but most psychologists are probably quite happy with where they are. So in 10 years time, you might be the one that's relaxing and chilling with, you know, the job that you love and the job that you fought for and made sacrifices for, whereas other people are going back to, you know, when you were 20 years old, struggling with, you know, not knowing what they want to do with their lives. Anything that you build, even though you feel like it's not, you know, you're not getting paid a lot, anything you build within, this is related to working in mental health, anything you build even as a support worker, even as a voluntary person, it adds up to what you actually do in the end. So it's not like you've lost time or lost experience because you've spent a long time getting to the point of becoming a trainee psychologist or becoming a psychologist. Every single step of the way, you learn something about your life, you develop more wisdom about yourself, you develop a higher ability to reflect on your own experiences, and all of this ends up being useful for becoming a psychologist. A lot of people grieve about, you know, how long the process can be. I guess try to frame it in a different way. Try to see it as, you know, you're gonna be a psychologist at some point, okay? And you know, the journey is not just empty void of a black hole of time that's wasted. Actually, each and every point is so useful for becoming a better psychologist. And another tangent to that is how much I like that studying psychology and being a psychologist and working mental health. It's such a personal thing, because you develop wisdom and you think about the hard questions in life, and you're exposed to the difficult struggles that people go through. And every single time you interact with someone, you learn something, and you have it for yourself as well, and you can relay it back out to someone else. If you read a book, even if it's a really good literature book, or a book that's on just neuroscience, you can literally integrate that into therapy. Anything you do, or any kind of experience, anything you learn can be integrated into your mental health work, which I think is really fascinating. Compared to, I don't know, becoming a very specialist person in like accountancy or something, the overlay or the trickle through effect of what you read in your private time or what you learn in your private life doesn't really trickle through to how well you can do taxes or how well you can keep accounts or something. However, I think with psychology work, as a result of your psychology degree, a lot of the lifelong learning that you have in your personal life trickles through into the professional life. I hope you like my weird diagram here. My final point on what's good about a psychology degree is again related to what you can do with a psychology degree. So if you end up working in mental health or learning disabilities or academia, I think the direct applicability of psychology, which I've kind of talked about or touched upon earlier in this video, the direct applicability of the knowledge that you gain means that you're quite a useful person in general. So I think you develop a cool, like a more, I guess, helpful sense of self, in that you know that your degree is helping you help people directly in your personal life as well. So not necessarily in terms of you're actually giving therapy to those people. In fact, like you probably aren't allowed to give therapy to your brother or something. However, you have so much more of a range of knowledge, of resources, of suggestions or possible advice or things to read on to the people that are struggling around you. And I find that really nice. It's a nice feeling to know that, if let's say your uncle's struggling with something and he knows you work in mental health, you can kind of provide him with some kind of self-help material that you found online like ages ago, or a certain book, because you read a lot of books on mental health, things that you feel like would help them. Or if it's a friend that has a brother or sister that is struggling with something and they don't know how to help them, again, you can be someone who can provide some generic advice into that, or provide them with the right resources, because actually the mental health literacy in our society is very low, actually very, very surprisingly low. So for example, if I say that I work with someone with psychosis, some people might not even know what that means, whereas to me it might be very obvious information. So it's a very good kind of interaction there, where you're providing, I guess, more knowledge and awareness in mental health issues and psychology misconceptions. You are the person who can advocate or dispel a lot of these misconceptions yourself. Because of the mental health literacy is so low, and that we are still struggling to really provide access to the right groups of people. So a lot of the times when people are struggling, they don't actually know what services to access. In the UK it's probably a little bit better, because GPs are trained to, I guess, do a generic kind of mental health assessment and be able to refer. However, that really does vary, in that some GPs have no clue and never refer people into primary care mental health services, and they don't even know it existed sometimes. And that's very true for people in society as well, in that the amount of times that I say, hey, I work in IAPT, in that we already treat and assess like millions of people, or a million people, we feel like that's doing a lot and people know about us, but actually talking to most people in my life, they have no clue what IAPT is. By the way, for people who don't know what IAPT is increasing access to psychological therapy, which is a kind of scheme that's been rolled out recently to increase access in psychological therapies. And we've been reaching a lot of people, but still a lot of people don't know we exist. So anyways, I'm rambling a lot, but my main bottom line point here is that you are able to be like, hey, if you're struggling with anxiety or stress, you can self-refer to this specific place. Or hey, you're an old person who is struggling with loneliness. Hey, from my work that I know that there's really good community services of like Open Age or community befriending groups, and you can call this number or look at this website and kind of give them a little bit of direction of like, hey, the BACP website is good for counseling psychologists, but if you want CBT therapists, these are the people and what the differences there are between them. So I guess it's a really good, you become a good like kind of encyclopedia when you work in mental health as well. This is a very deviant point from the benefits of studying psychology, but I think this is just a personal point that I've found as a result of studying psychology. I wouldn't have gone into mental health in the first place if I didn't study psychology and thought about mental health in general. So I think it was definitely a major catalyst in my ability to go into work into mental health and getting all these benefits from working in mental health. So in theory it's still relevant to the video. So we've come to an end of the video now. Thank you so much for watching, and if you do enjoy these videos, please click the subscribe button and leave me a comment about what you love about psychology. I'd love to hear about that, and maybe it'll help encourage other people who are looking through my other video and freaking out, and seeing the comments would be quite comforting to them. So that I would really appreciate that, and I'll see you next week. Maybe not next week, maybe in 2 weeks time. Because I'm moving. So bye.